Please accept this shy virgin bride." The rancher froze when she held his hand like she already knew. Emily's heart raced as the old carriage trundled down the dusty road toward the ranch. She pressed her hands together in her lap, trying to calm the mix of excitement and fear swirling inside her. This was a completely new world for her. She had grown up in a small town, surrounded by familiar streets, familiar faces, and the kind of life that was comfortable because it was predictable. But the ranch was different. Vast fields stretched out in every direction, dotted with grazing horses and cattle. Tall trees swayed gently in the wind, and the scent of earth and hay filled the air. Emily had never seen anything like it. As the carriage wheels ground to a halt at the entrance of the ranch, Emily took a deep breath. She had dreamed about this day for a long time, but now that it had come, she wasn't sure she was ready. She smoothed the folds of her pale blue dress nervously and stepped down, her small boots sinking slightly into the soft dirt. The ranch house loomed ahead, a large, sturdy building made of warm-colored wood. It was not fancy, but it had a welcoming feel, as if it had been waiting for her arrival all along. She could see him before he noticed her. Luke, the rancher she was to marry, was standing near the stable, his broad shoulders relaxed as he fed a group of horses. He was taller than she expected, with hair the color of dark honey and eyes that seemed to study everything with quiet intensity. He looked up briefly, noticing the carriage, but returned quickly to his work, unaware that Emily was watching him. Emily's hands trembled slightly as she walked toward him. She had rehearsed what she would say, how she would introduce herself, but when she stepped closer, the words caught in her throat. She was shy, and the weight of this new life pressed down on her. Luke turned to her at that moment, his eyes finally meeting hers. Emily felt a strange flutter in her chest. There was something in his gaze, steady, calm, yet alert, that made her feel like he could see right into her heart. "Emily," he said, his voice low but firm, "welcome to the ranch." She nodded, unsure whether to smile or simply bow her head. Her voice felt tiny when it finally came out. Thank you, sir." Luke's eyes softened a little and he took a step closer. "I hope the journey wasn't too difficult." Emily shook her head. "It was fine. I'm just happy to be here." Luke studied her for a moment, noticing the careful way she held herself, the quiet strength hidden behind her shyness. He extended his hand toward her. Emily's heart skipped a beat. She took it gently, almost hesitating, and something in that brief touch made Luke pause. He froze for a moment, surprised by the sense of familiarity that seemed to pass between them, as if they had met long ago. Emily pulled back slightly, noticing his hesitation, but said nothing. The silence hung in the air, filled with unspoken thoughts and emotions. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Emily was shown her room, a modest but comfortable space with a small bed, a wooden desk, and a window that looked out over the fields. She unpacked her belongings slowly, placing each item with care. Everything was new and strange, yet there was a calm beauty to it. She could hear the soft sounds of the ranch outside her window, the distant lowing of cattle, the rustle of leaves, and the occasional neigh of a horse. Luke visited her room briefly before dinner. He offered a polite smile and some guidance on the evening meal. "Dinner will be ready in an hour. I hope you'll join us." His voice was courteous, but there was a subtle warmth in it that made Emily feel slightly more at ease. As she prepared to go down to the dining area, Emily's mind raced with thoughts of this new life. She wondered what Luke was really like beyond the quiet stoicism he showed. She wondered if she could find her place here, among strangers and responsibilities she had never faced before. But more than anything, she felt a strange pull toward him, a curiosity that she could not explain. Dinner was a simple affair in the large wooden dining room. Luke's family, though small, was welcoming. They spoke kindly to Emily, asking gentle questions about her upbringing, her likes, and her interests. Emily answered softly, her voice gaining a little confidence as she realized that they were genuinely interested in her answers. Luke observed quietly from the head of the table, noticing the way Emily listened attentively, the way her eyes flickered with curiosity at new things, and the small, shy smiles she offered to those who spoke to her. After dinner, Luke offered to show Emily around the ranch under the fading light of the evening. Emily followed him, marveling at the vastness of the property. They passed the stables, the barns, and the wide fields stretching into the distance. Luke pointed out the different areas, where the horses grazed, where the cattle were kept, and the small orchard that bore fresh fruit every season. Emily listened, asked questions, and occasionally laughed softly at his explanations. At one point, Luke stopped near the edge of a quiet pond. The water reflected the pink and orange hues of the sunset, and Emily felt a moment of peaceful awe. She looked at Luke, and for the first time he seemed less like the stoic, reserved man she had imagined and more like someone capable of warmth and depth. She hesitated, then reached out, placing her hand lightly in his. Luke froze again, a shiver of surprise running through him. He had felt that spark of familiarity before, but now it was stronger. He looked down at her hand, then at her face. Emily met his gaze with a quiet confidence, as if she understood something about him that he himself did not yet realize. The moment was delicate and fleeting, yet it spoke volumes. No words were needed. The connection between them was becoming undeniable. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in deep shades of purple and gold, they walked back toward the house. Emily felt a strange mix of nervousness and excitement. She knew that her life was about to change completely, yet there was a comforting sense that she was exactly where she needed to be. Luke, on the other hand, was silently aware that this shy, gentle woman had already made an impression on him, an impression he could not easily forget. That night, as Emily lay in her new room, she reflected on the day. Every sight, every sound, every small interaction had left a mark on her. She had been nervous, shy, and uncertain, yet she had survived her first day with courage she did not know she possessed. And somewhere deep inside, she felt the beginnings of a bond that might grow stronger with each passing day. Outside her window, the ranch lay quiet under the starry sky, a world of possibilities waiting to unfold. Emily drifted off to sleep with a sense of cautious hope. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new moments, and perhaps the chance to understand Luke and herself better. But for now, she was content to simply be here in this new life on this vast ranch, where everything seemed possible and nothing felt rushed. The first step of her journey had begun, and it had already begun to change her heart in ways she could not yet explain. The next morning, Emily awoke to the soft sound of roosters crowing in the distance. Sunlight streamed through the small window of her room, casting a warm glow on the wooden floor. She took a deep breath and tried to steady herself. Today would be another day of learning, adjusting, and stepping further into this new life. The ranch was large, and there was much to understand, its routines, its animals, and the man she was slowly coming to know. Emily dressed carefully, choosing a simple skirt and blouse that allowed her to move freely. She had already realized that life on the ranch required practicality, not elegance. As she stepped outside, the crisp morning air greeted her, carrying with it the sense of earth, hay, and dew-covered grass. Luke was already in the barn, tending to the horses. His presence was comforting in its consistency. He moved with confidence, his hands skilled and sure, handling each animal with care. Emily watched for a moment, feeling a quiet admiration. "Good morning," she called softly, trying not to startle him. Luke looked up, a faint smile crossing his face. "Morning, ready to start your day?" Emily nodded, though she felt a flutter of nerves. "Yes, I think so." He gestured for her to follow him, and together they moved through the barn. Luke showed her how to brush the horses' coats, feed them, and check their hooves for signs of injury. Emily listened carefully, mimicking his movements, sometimes fumbling but always trying to learn. Luke's patience surprised her. He didn't scold her for mistakes or rush her when she struggled. Instead, he guided her gently, correcting her with soft words and careful demonstration. As the morning passed, Emily began to feel more comfortable. She noticed small details: the way Luke's eyes softened when a horse nuzzled him, the subtle way he spoke to the animals as if he understood their thoughts. There was something quietly noble about him, something she hadn't expected. And yet, even as she admired him, she remained shy, unsure of how to bridge the gap between them. During a short break, they sat under a large oak tree near the barn. Emily took out a small cloth to wipe the sweat from her forehead. Luke leaned back against the trunk, watching her quietly. "You're doing better than you think," he said after a moment. Emily blushed, looking down at her hands. "I'm just trying not to mess things up." Luke chuckled softly, a sound so rare that it caught her off guard. "You won't, you'll learn. Everyone does eventually." Emily felt a small surge of confidence. His words were simple, but they carried weight. She began to relax slightly, feeling that perhaps she could find her place here after all. As they resumed their work, she noticed something subtle. Luke watched her in a way that was not just observant but thoughtful, as if he were trying to understand her, not just teach her. By midday, Emily had learned to feed the cattle and even assist with the milking process. It was hard work and her arms ached, but she felt a sense of accomplishment she had never experienced before. Luke, noticing her determination, gave a rare approving nod. "You're catching on quickly," he said. Emily smiled shyly, pleased by the praise. "I'm learning from a good teacher," she replied softly. He looked at her, eyes lingering on her face for a brief moment before returning to his tasks. Emily felt a strange warmth at the glance, a silent acknowledgement that she was more than just a new bride. She was someone he respected. After lunch, they moved to the orchard. Luke explained how to pick the ripest fruit without damaging the trees. Emily followed his instructions carefully, her small hands plucking apples and placing them gently into the basket. Occasionally, she would glance at Luke, noticing the way he moved with ease and confidence. It was clear that he was at home here, and she found herself wishing to be more like him, steady, self-assured, and capable. As the sun began to dip in the sky, Emily realized how much she had learned in just one day. She felt exhausted but satisfied. Luke, too, seemed aware of the progress she had made. There was a quiet sense of camaraderie between them now, built not on words but on shared effort and mutual respect. That evening, as they returned to the house, Luke asked Emily if she wanted to help with the animals' evening feeding. She agreed eagerly, and together they moved through the barn once more. Emily noticed that Luke's instructions were becoming less frequent. He trusted her to handle tasks with her own judgment. Each time she completed a chore successfully, she felt a small spark of pride. She was no longer just a guest or a timid bride. She was becoming part of the rhythm of ranch life. Later, they shared a quiet dinner in the dining room. Conversation flowed more easily than the night before. Luke's family asked Emily questions about her childhood, and she answered with growing confidence. She told them about her small town, the books she loved to read, and the dreams she had quietly harbored. Luke listened attentively, occasionally offering his own insights, and Emily felt a subtle bond forming, not just with him but with the family she was now a part of. After dinner, Luke suggested a walk through the fields under the starlit sky. Emily followed him, her steps careful but eager. The ranch looked different at night, calm, peaceful, almost magical. The soft glow of lanterns, the distant sounds of animals settling for the night, and the cool night air created a sense of serenity that Emily had not experienced before. As they walked, Emily found herself speaking more freely. She shared her fears about fitting into this new life and her hopes for learning and growing. Luke listened, his expression thoughtful, offering quiet encouragement. At one point, Emily's hand brushed against his. She froze, uncertain, but Luke's hand remained steady beside hers. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a connection that went beyond words. The walk ended near the edge of a small pond, where the water mirrored the stars above. Emily knelt to dip her fingers into the cool water, and Luke stood beside her, his presence strong and reassuring. For a moment, they simply stood together, the night around them filled with a comfortable silence. Emily realized that she no longer felt like an outsider. She belonged here, in this place, alongside someone who was beginning to understand her in ways no one else had. By the time they returned to the house, Emily felt a mixture of exhaustion and contentment. She had learned so much, grown in confidence, and taken steps toward understanding the life she was now a part of. Luke, for his part, had seen more of Emily's courage and patience than he expected on the first day. There was a quiet respect forming between them, the kind that only develops through shared experiences and mutual trust. That night, as Emily lay in bed, she reflected on the day's events. She thought about the hard work, the small victories, and the growing connection she felt with Luke. She realized that shyness did not mean weakness. It could be paired with courage, and with time, it could grow into strength. She also felt a quiet anticipation for the days to come, knowing that each one would bring new challenges, new lessons, and perhaps a deeper understanding of the man beside her. Outside, the ranch was quiet, bathed in moonlight. The horses slept, the cattle rested, and the wind whispered through the trees. Inside, Emily felt a growing sense of purpose. She had survived her second day on the ranch, not as a timid girl, but as a young woman ready to face whatever came next. She drifted into sleep with a calm heart, knowing that tomorrow would bring more opportunities, more moments of connection, and perhaps a deeper bond with Luke, the man who had already begun to change her life in ways she could not yet fully understand. The morning sun spilled across the ranch, painting the fields with golden light. Emily woke with a quiet determination. She had learned so much in her first 2 days, yet she knew there was still a long way to go. Life on the ranch was not easy, and every day brought new lessons. But she felt a growing strength within herself, a confidence that surprised even her. After breakfast, Luke approached her with a small smile, something rare but genuine. "Ready for another day?" he asked, his deep voice carrying a calm steadiness. Emily nodded. "Yes. I feel ready to learn more." Luke led her toward the pasture where the horses grazed peacefully. "Today, we'll focus on riding," he said. "It's important to understand the animals, not just handle them." Emily's heart raced at the thought. Riding a horse required balance, confidence, and a kind of trust that she wasn't sure she fully possessed. Yet, as she looked at the gentle animals before her, she felt a spark of excitement. Luke helped her mount a smaller, calm horse named Daisy. She held the reins tightly, her knuckles white, while Luke stood beside her, steadying the animal. "Relax," he said softly. "Daisy will follow your movements. Just trust her and trust yourself." Emily took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of Luke's hand briefly brushing hers as he adjusted her position. That simple touch sent a shiver down her spine, a strange feeling of familiarity and comfort. She glanced at him, unsure of why her heart fluttered in response. Luke, for his part, noticed her hesitation, and the way her small hand seemed almost instinctively confident despite her nervousness. He froze for a brief moment, struck by the same inexplicable sense he had felt the first day she touched his hand. "Try to feel the rhythm," Luke instructed, stepping back slightly. "Don't fight it." Emily nodded and let the horse move beneath her. Slowly, cautiously, she found a rhythm, a gentle sway that matched Daisy's movements. Luke walked alongside her, guiding with occasional suggestions. "Good, good," he encouraged. "You're doing better than you think." The morning passed with Emily gradually gaining confidence. She felt a mix of exhilaration and pride as she rode across the open fields, the wind brushing her hair, the sun warming her face. Luke observed silently, impressed by her determination and patience. He noticed the careful way she studied the horse, the intuitive understanding she displayed in even small gestures. Each time she completed a maneuver successfully, her eyes sparkled with quiet triumph. By midday, Emily was ready for a short break. She dismounted, feeling the ache in her legs and arms, but also a deep satisfaction. Luke handed her a bottle of water, and their hands brushed briefly again. The contact was brief, yet it carried a subtle intensity, a silent acknowledgement of their growing connection. Emily's cheeks warmed, and she looked away, unsure how to react. Luke's eyes, however, lingered on hers for a moment longer than necessary, his thoughts conflicted yet undeniably drawn to her presence. After the break, Luke suggested they move to the orchard to gather fruit for the afternoon meal. Emily followed, laughing softly when a branch brushed against her hair. Luke moved beside her, demonstrating how to pick the ripest apples without damaging the tree. Emily mimicked his movements carefully, enjoying the simple rhythm of the work. There was a quiet intimacy in these small tasks, a growing bond built not on words, but on shared effort and understanding. As they worked, Emily found herself speaking more freely. She shared small stories from her childhood, how she had always loved the quiet mornings, how she enjoyed reading by the window, and how she sometimes dreamed of adventures beyond her small town. Luke listened, occasionally commenting or asking gentle questions. Emily noticed a subtle change in him. His stoicism softened, replaced by a quiet warmth whenever she spoke. In the late afternoon, Luke suggested a walk to the nearby creek. The path was shaded by trees, and the sound of running water created a peaceful ambience. Emily followed him, holding her skirt carefully as she navigated the uneven ground. At the creek, Luke stopped and gestured for her to sit on a smooth rock near the water. Emily did so, her gaze following the gentle flow of the stream. "Do you like it here?" Luke asked quietly. Emily nodded, her fingers tracing patterns on the rock beneath her. "Yes, it's peaceful, different from anywhere I've ever been." Luke studied her for a moment, noticing the thoughtful way she spoke, the calm confidence in her voice despite her shyness. "It suits you," he said simply. Emily looked at him, surprised by the statement. "Me?" she asked softly. He nodded. "Yes, you don't try to stand out, yet you leave a mark wherever you go. It's rare." Emily felt her heart skip a beat. The compliment was simple, yet it carried depth. She looked down at her hands, unsure how to respond. Luke, noticing her shyness, smiled faintly. He reached out, resting his hand near hers on the rock. Emily's hand twitched slightly toward his, almost instinctively. She could feel the warmth of his skin, the strength beneath it, and the quiet reassurance it offered. For a brief moment, they simply sat together, hands almost touching, sharing a silence that felt comfortable and unspoken. After a while, Luke suggested they head back before the evening chores called. Emily stood, feeling a mixture of reluctance and contentment. As they walked back, they encountered a young foal tangled in some fencing. Emily rushed forward, instinctively knowing how to calm it. Luke followed, impressed by her natural gentleness and courage. Together, they freed the foal, guiding it back to its mother. Emily's eyes shone with quiet triumph, and Luke couldn't help but smile at her intuitive care. As the evening approached, they returned to the house, tired but satisfied. Dinner was quieter than usual, the family sensing the day's intensity and allowing Emily a moment of peace. Afterward, Luke offered to show her some of the stables that she hadn't yet visited. Emily followed, her curiosity growing alongside her comfort. In one of the smaller stables, they found a few newborn chicks in a cozy enclosure. Emily crouched down to observe them, marveling at their tiny feathers and delicate movements. Luke knelt beside her, explaining how to care for them. Emily listened intently, her hands reaching carefully to touch the small creatures. Their proximity created a quiet closeness, and once again, their hands brushed lightly as he handed her a small chick to hold. Luke froze, just as he had before, sensing the same inexplicable familiarity that always seemed to accompany her touch. Emily felt a strange calmness at the contact, as if they were both sharing a silent understanding. Neither spoke, but the moment was charged with unspoken words and emotions neither was ready to name. As night fell, Emily retired to her room, reflecting on the day. She had ridden, worked, and learned so much, yet the most important lessons were not about tasks or skills. They were about connection, trust, and courage. She realized that her shyness did not make her weak. It allowed her to observe, listen, and understand in ways others might overlook. Luke, meanwhile, stayed in the study, thinking about Emily. He could not shake the feeling that she was unlike anyone he had ever met. There was something in her calm determination, her quiet courage, and her intuitive understanding that made him pause, reconsider, and slowly begin to feel emotions he had long buried under his rugged exterior. For both of them, the day had been more than work. It had been a step toward understanding each other. Emily had begun to see Luke as more than a stoic rancher. She saw glimpses of warmth, patience, and depth. Luke had begun to see Emily as more than a shy bride. He saw strength, courage, and a quiet wisdom that intrigued him deeply. As Emily drifted off to sleep, she felt a sense of hope. Life on the ranch was challenging, but she was learning, growing, and finding moments of joy in even the simplest tasks. And somewhere deep inside, she knew that her connection with Luke was slowly, quietly, becoming something significant, something that neither time nor distance could easily erase. Outside, the ranch lay under a star-strewn sky. The horses slept, the fields rested, and the gentle night wind whispered through the trees. Inside, Emily's heart beat with anticipation, curiosity, and a growing confidence that tomorrow would bring new lessons, new moments, and perhaps another glimpse into the quiet, unspoken bond that was forming between her and Luke. The morning light filtered through Emily's window. Once again, and she awoke with a mix of anticipation and calm determination. By now she had settled into the rhythm of ranch life, learning the routines, the animals, and even the small quirks of her new home. Her confidence had grown, though she still retained her shy, thoughtful nature. There was comfort in knowing that she was beginning to find her place here, and there was curiosity about the quiet, reserved man who had slowly started to feel less like a stranger. After breakfast, Luke appeared at the doorway, his usual steady presence filling the room. "Today," he said, "I thought we could do something different. There's a part of the ranch you haven't explored much yet, and I want to show it to you." Emily felt a flutter of excitement. She had been learning about the stables, the orchard, and the fields, but there were corners of the ranch she had not yet seen. "I'd like that," she said softly, adjusting her sleeve as she followed him out the door. They walked together through a narrow path that led to a small hill overlooking the valley. The sight was breathtaking. Rolling fields stretched out in every direction, framed by distant mountains, with the morning mist curling gently around the trees. Emily paused, taking it all in. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Luke stood beside her silently, watching her reaction. "It is," he said quietly. "I've spent most of my life here, but it never gets old. There's something about seeing it from up here. It makes everything feel connected." Emily glanced at him, noticing the rare softness in his expression. "It feels peaceful," she said, "like it's a place where someone can really breathe." Luke nodded, and for a moment, they simply stood there together, sharing the view and the quiet. There was a growing sense of trust between them, a feeling that words were not always necessary. Emily had begun to understand that connection could be built in silence, in shared moments, and in the unspoken understanding that grew from small, thoughtful gestures. As they descended the hill, Luke led Emily to a secluded area near the creek. "I wanted to show you this place," he said. "Not many people know about it. It's quiet and it's special to me." Emily looked around in awe. The creek curved gently, surrounded by wildflowers and soft grass. The sunlight reflected off the water, creating a pattern of sparkling lights that danced across the surface. She knelt beside the water, dipping her fingers in, feeling the cool rush against her skin. It was soothing, calming, and almost magical. Luke knelt beside her, quietly observing. Emily noticed that his presence was steady, reassuring, but there was also something more, a subtle attentiveness that suggested he truly cared about the moment and the experience she was having. She looked at him and their eyes met briefly. There was no need for words. The connection was already present, felt in the rhythm of shared breathing and the peacefulness of the surroundings. "Do you come here often?" Emily asked softly, breaking the silence. Luke nodded. "Whenever I need to think or feel like the world is a little less heavy, there's something about this place that reminds me of what's important." Emily smiled faintly. "I can see that. I think I could understand why it's special." They stayed there for a while, watching the creek, listening to the soft sounds of nature, and feeling the gentle warmth of the sun. Emily felt a calmness she hadn't known she could feel outside of her small town. It was as if the ranch itself was teaching her to slow down, to observe, and to trust in her own abilities. And alongside that calm, there was an unspoken curiosity about Luke, a desire to understand him as fully as she had begun to understand the land. When it was time to return to the house, Luke suggested a small task. "There's a corner of the orchard that needs attention," he said. "Some of the trees need trimming, and the soil needs to be turned over." Emily nodded eagerly. She loved working with her hands, and there was satisfaction in completing tasks that had visible results. Together, they worked quietly, exchanging occasional instructions and small comments. Emily noticed that Luke had begun to share more of himself in these moments, his preferences, his methods, and even small stories about the ranch. She listened intently, absorbing every detail, and felt a growing admiration for the man who had quietly taught her so much. As they finished the work, Emily wiped the sweat from her brow and looked at the results of their efforts. The trees looked healthier, the soil richer, and the orchard seemed to breathe with renewed life. Luke, too, seemed pleased, though he said little. "Good work," he finally said, his voice carrying a warmth that was rare but genuine. Emily felt a quiet pride. It wasn't just about completing a task. It was about learning, growing, and understanding the rhythm of life here. And somewhere deep inside, she felt that Luke was noticing more than just her work. He had begun to see her character, the patience, the care, and the quiet determination that shone even in small gestures. Later, as the sun began to set, Luke invited Emily for another walk, this time through the fields where the cattle grazed. The sky was painted in shades of pink and gold, and Emily felt a sense of peace she hadn't known before. Luke walked beside her, and they spoke more freely than they had in days. Emily shared thoughts she had never expressed aloud, and Luke listened with genuine interest, occasionally offering insights from his own experiences. At one point, Emily's hand brushed against his again, almost accidentally. She froze, unsure of the moment, but Luke did not pull away. Instead, he let her hand rest near his, steady and reassuring. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a quiet acknowledgement of the bond that had been growing since her arrival. For Emily, it was comforting. For Luke, it was unexpected, yet welcome. As they neared a small grove of trees, Luke stopped and gestured for her to sit on a fallen log. Emily did so, and he sat beside her. "I've been meaning to ask," he said softly. "How are you feeling about all of this? Life here and me?" Emily hesitated, thinking carefully. She had grown so much in a short time, and she wanted to be honest. "It's different from anything I expected," she said slowly. "But I feel like I'm learning, growing, and finding a place where I belong. And I think I'm beginning to understand you too. Even though we've only known each other a short time, there's a connection I can't explain." Luke's eyes softened, and for the first time he allowed a small, genuine smile. "I feel the same," he admitted. "It's strange, but I've felt something from the moment you arrived." Something familiar, though I don't understand why. You have a way of seeing things, understanding things that I haven't seen before." Emily's heart fluttered. She had sensed the same inexplicable feeling, the connection that had sparked when they first touched hands, the sense that they understood each other in ways neither could fully explain. Yet now, hearing it confirmed by Luke, it felt real, grounding, and meaningful. They sat together for a while, sharing stories, dreams, and quiet moments of understanding. Emily realized that shyness did not prevent connection. It allowed it to grow naturally, slowly, and authentically. And Luke, for all his stoicism, was learning that opening up, even slightly, could create bonds that were stronger than anything he had imagined. As night fell, they returned to the house, the stars twinkling above. Dinner was quiet and peaceful, the family sensing the bond growing between them. Emily felt a sense of contentment as she reflected on the day. She had learned more than tasks and routines. She had learned about trust, patience, and the quiet power of understanding another person. That night, as she lay in bed, Emily thought about the day, the orchard, the creek, the sunset walk, and the shared moments with Luke. She realized that the shy, reserved girl who had arrived at the ranch was changing. She was growing stronger, more confident, and more aware of the subtle connections that shaped life. And she knew, deep in her heart, that her bond with Luke was not fleeting. It was growing, quietly and steadily, with each shared glance, each gentle touch, and each moment of understanding. Outside, the ranch rested under the moonlight. The fields were calm, the animals sleeping, and the gentle night breeze whispered through the trees. Inside, Emily drifted into sleep with a sense of quiet hope and anticipation. Life on the ranch was challenging, yes, but it was also teaching her, shaping her, and revealing the depth of a connection she could not yet name, but that she knew would continue to grow, slowly, quietly, and meaningfully in the days to come. The morning dawned clear and bright. Over the ranch, Emily woke feeling a quiet excitement she could not fully explain. Over the past days, she had grown more confident, more aware of her surroundings, and more in tune with the rhythm of ranch life. The animals, the fields, and the routines no longer seemed overwhelming. Instead, they had become familiar, comforting, and part of her new world. As she prepared for the day, Emily reflected on the bond she had slowly built with Luke. It had begun with a simple touch, a shared glance, and moments of quiet understanding. Over time, it had grown into something deeper, an unspoken connection that neither of them had rushed to name but both had felt strongly. She wondered if Luke sensed it as clearly as she did, or if he was still keeping his feelings guarded behind his calm, stoic demeanor. Downstairs, the aroma of freshly baked bread and warm tea greeted her. Luke was already at the table, reading through a small notebook of ranch notes. He looked up as she entered, a faint smile touching his lips. "Morning," he said simply. "Sleep well," Emily nodded, returning the smile softly. "Yes, thank you. I feel ready for today." Luke gestured toward the door. "Good. There's work in the fields, and then I thought we could take a walk to the far side of the ranch. It's a place you haven't seen yet, and it's special." Emily followed him willingly, feeling a quiet anticipation. She had come to trust him not only as her guide, but also as someone who understood the pace of her heart, the subtle hesitations, and the quiet strength beneath her shyness. The morning passed with shared work. Emily assisted with tending the animals, gathering eggs, and checking on the orchard trees. Luke guided her gently, offering advice and encouragement without ever making her feel inadequate. Emily noticed the subtle ways he observed her, how he watched her hands, her posture, and her expressions. There was an attentiveness in him that made her feel seen, valued, and understood. By midday, they set out for the far side of the ranch. The path wound through rolling hills, fields of wildflowers, and clusters of trees. The sun shone warmly, and a soft breeze carried the scent of earth and blossoms. Emily walked beside Luke, matching her steps to his steady stride. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with shared presence rather than awkwardness. Finally, they arrived at a quiet meadow surrounded by tall trees. A small wooden bench rested in the center, overlooking a gentle stream. Emily's eyes widened. "It's beautiful," she whispered, stepping closer to the bench. Luke smiled faintly. "I come here when I need to think or when I just want to feel at peace. I wanted you to see it." Emily glanced at him, noticing a rare softness in his expression. "I understand," she said. "I can see why it's special. It feels calm, like the rest of the world doesn't exist for a moment." Luke sat on the bench and gestured for her to join him. Emily hesitated briefly, then sat beside him, feeling the warmth of his presence. They watched the stream flow gently, listening to the quiet sounds of water and leaves. Emily felt a deep sense of contentment, a feeling that life, in all its challenges and uncertainties, had brought her exactly to this moment. After a while, Luke spoke quietly. "Emily, these past days I've come to realize something. You're different from anyone I've ever met. You have a way of seeing, understanding, and caring that I didn't know was possible. You've changed the way I think about everything." Emily's heart fluttered. She had felt the same connection, the same familiarity, but hearing him say it aloud made it real, undeniable. She looked at him, her shy smile softening into something more confident. "Luke, I've felt it too, from the first day when we shook hands. There was something familiar, like I already understood you before I even knew you. And over these days I've come to trust you, to understand you, and to care for you." Luke's eyes softened, and for the first time he reached out, taking her hand gently in his. The touch was deliberate, warm, and grounding. Emily felt a wave of calm wash over her, and she held his hand in return, her small fingers fitting into his strong ones as if they had always belonged there. The connection was no longer subtle or unspoken. It was real, tangible, and mutual. They sat together for a long time, talking quietly about their pasts, their hopes, and their dreams. Emily shared stories from her childhood, the small moments that had shaped her, and the aspirations she held for her life. Luke, in turn, revealed glimpses of his own past, the responsibilities of managing the ranch, the quiet moments of solitude, and the ways he had learned to protect his heart while remaining open to those he trusted. With each shared story, the bond between them grew stronger. Emily realized that her shyness had never been a barrier. It had allowed her to observe, listen, and connect in ways that words alone could not achieve. Luke recognized that his reserved nature had not prevented him from feeling deeply. It had only allowed him to notice and value the quiet courage and strength within Emily. As the sun began to set, painting the meadow in shades of gold and amber, Luke stood and offered his hand to Emily. She took it without hesitation, and together they walked along the stream, their steps in harmony. There was laughter in their conversation, soft teasing, and shared stories that created a sense of intimacy without force or expectation. When they returned to the ranch, the family noticed the subtle changes in both of them. Emily moved with a new confidence, and Luke's protective warmth was more visible than ever. The household felt lighter, filled with a quiet sense of unity and understanding. Emily realized that she was no longer an outsider. She had become a part of this home, this land, and this family. That evening, as they finished dinner, Luke asked Emily if she wanted to help with some small chores around the barn. She agreed eagerly, and together they worked side by side. Their hands brushed occasionally, sending small sparks of connection, yet there was no rush or pressure, just a natural, comfortable closeness that had grown over days of shared experiences. As night fell, Luke led Emily to the front porch. The sky was filled with stars, the air crisp and quiet. They sat together on the wooden steps, shoulders almost touching, hands intertwined. Emily leaned slightly toward him, feeling the warmth and reassurance of his presence. "I'm glad you're here," Luke said softly. "I've realized that life on this ranch, it's better with you in it. You've brought something I didn't know I was missing." Emily smiled, her heart full. "And I'm glad I came. This place, it's become more than I imagined. You've helped me find courage I didn't know I had, and I've learned that I can belong somewhere, with someone who understands me." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the gentle night sounds, the rustling of leaves, the distant lowing of cattle, and the soft whisper of the wind. Emily felt a profound sense of peace. She knew that life on the ranch would continue to be challenging, but she also knew that together, they could face whatever came next. As they finally went inside for the night, Emily reflected on her journey. She had arrived as a shy, timid young woman, uncertain of her place in the world. Over the days, she had learned, grown, and discovered the strength within herself. She had faced new challenges, embraced unfamiliar responsibilities, and built a bond with a man who had slowly revealed his own depth, patience, and warmth. Luke, too, had changed. The stoic, reserved rancher had begun to open his heart, allowing himself to trust, to care, and to connect with someone who had quietly become indispensable to him. The shy bride he had once thought fragile had proven to be courageous, patient, and intuitive, qualities that had drawn him in from the first moment they met. As Emily lay in her room that night, she felt a sense of completion and anticipation. Her journey was far from over, but she had reached a point of understanding and mutual trust that would guide them both forward. She thought about Luke, the ranch, and the quiet bond that had grown steadily, almost imperceptibly, into something meaningful. She smiled softly, knowing that their story was only beginning, and that the foundation they had built over these days would support them for all the days to come. Outside, the ranch was calm under the starry sky. The fields rested, the animals slept, and the gentle wind carried a sense of quiet promise. Inside, Emily drifted into a peaceful sleep, holding onto the knowledge that she had found a place where she belonged, a life full of purpose, and a connection that was real, lasting, and true. And in the heart of the ranch, Luke rested too, feeling for the first time in a long while that life had given him something rare and precious, someone who understood him, challenged him, and completed the quiet rhythm of his days. The journey had begun with a shy, tentative handshake, a moment that neither of them fully understood. And yet, through days of learning, working, sharing, and observing, that simple touch had blossomed into a bond stronger than either could have imagined. A bond rooted in trust, respect, patience, and quiet love. It was a beginning neither had expected, but both now knew was exactly where they were meant to be.